We used your medication money to buy your sister a new phone. My dad said it like he was telling me he forgot to pick up milk. Just casual. Matter of fact. Like my prescription, the one my doctor said was urgent, was basically the same priority as getting batteries at the store. I sat there at our pristine white dining table, Sunday lunch half eaten, and I could feel this coldness spreading through my chest. Not shock. Not even anger yet. Just this awful clarity. Right, I said slowly. So I guess you didn't read the warning label the pharmacist sent. My mom's hand froze on her wine glass. Warning. What warning? The silence that came after that wasn't normal silence. It was the kind of quiet that feels like pressure building before something explodes. My dad, Graham, he just kept cutting his steak. Precise, controlled cuts. That's his thing. If he ignores a problem hard enough, it stops existing. My mom, Veronica, she was already fidgeting with the centerpiece, these expensive white roses she changes out every 3 days. Her nervous energy was radiating off her in waves. Avery, don't be dramatic, my dad said without looking up. It's just medication. We'll get it next week. Paige needed the camera kit for her vlog. It's an investment in her future. An investment. That word sat in my mouth like poison. Yes, he said, finally meeting my eyes. His were cold, flat. An investment. Unlike your constant medical expenses. I looked over at Paige. My sister. 19, glowing, perfect. She was completely absorbed in her new phone, testing angles for her next video. She didn't even hear us. She didn't have to. In this house, Paige was the art on the wall, something to be admired and protected. I was the drywall. Necessary to keep the structure standing, but invisible until something cracked. And I was cracking. Had been for months. Every time I'd wake up with my hands shaking so bad I couldn't hold a pencil. Every time the dizziness hit me in the middle of a client presentation and I'd have to grip the table to stay upright. Every time I'd research my symptoms late at night, seeing the words degenerative and progressive and feeling ice in my veins. I'd been managing this alone. Hiding it. Because that's what I did in this family. I managed. I handled things. I stayed small. I stood up. My legs felt weak, and there was this tremor running through my hands that I had to hide by clenching them into fists. That tremor, it was part of the neurological condition I'd been managing in secret for months. The condition they just refused to pay for. But this time, the shaking wasn't just from the illness. It was rage. Pure, cold rage settling in my chest like a stone. "Where are you going?" my mom asked, her voice going shrill. "We haven't even had dessert." "I'm leaving," I said. My voice came out steady. Surprisingly steady. "And I'm not coming back until you explain why a piece of technology is worth more to you than my health." "Avery, sit down," my dad commanded. "You're making a scene." "No," I said. "I'm making a choice." I grabbed my keys from the counter. They felt heavier than they should. I walked to the door, my footsteps echoing on those pristine marble floors they were so proud of. I didn't look back. I knew what I'd see if I did. My mom's anxious face, my dad's angry one, and Paige, still oblivious, still perfect, still the center of their entire universe. I got in my car and drove. I didn't go to a friend's house. I didn't go cry in a park. I drove straight to the pharmacy. The whole drive, my mind was racing. We used that money to buy your sister's new phone. It wasn't just selfishness. It was a statement of value. My health, my actual survival, was worth less than $2,800. Less than a camera kit. Less than maintaining the illusion that we were still the perfect family with money to burn. When I got to the pharmacy, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely get my credit card out. The total flashed on the screen, $2,450. That was my entire emergency fund. Every cent I'd saved from freelance architecture projects, from skipping meals, from walking instead of taking the bus. 3 years of saving. Gone in one transaction. I swiped the card. The machine beeped. Approved. I took the bag with the medication vials. It felt so light. Insignificant. For something that had just cost me my entire safety net. I sat in my car for a long time, just staring at the steering wheel. My phone kept buzzing. Text after text from my mom. Don't be childish. Come back. Your father didn't mean it like that. But he did. He absolutely did. I thought about this thing I'd read about years ago in a psychology class, glass child syndrome. It's when you're the sibling of someone special, someone who gets all the attention. You become invisible. Transparent. You're expected to be perfect, problem-free, so your parents can focus on the one who shines. I'd spent 23 years trying to be invisible. Trying to be low maintenance. Trying to be the good daughter who didn't need anything. And it had gotten me exactly nothing. I was transparent to them. But here's the thing about glass, when it breaks, it gets sharp. And I was done being smooth and see-through. I was ready to cut. I started the car. I wasn't going back to Connecticut. I was going to my apartment in the city, the small studio I paid for myself. The one place where I felt solid, real, visible. And I had a plan forming in my head. Not revenge exactly. More like an audit. A structural assessment of the family I'd been propping up for 23 years. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and just breathed for a minute. The silence here was different. It wasn't suffocating. It was mine. I'd chosen it. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up our family's shared cloud drive, the one I managed because my dad couldn't be bothered to learn how to organize files. I started looking. Not as a daughter this time. As an architect inspecting a building for structural faults. And I found them. Cracks in the foundation. Money moving in ways it shouldn't. I saw the withdrawal for Page's camera kit, $2,800. And right next to it, a transfer from my own savings account to the family account, labeled utilities. I had paid the electric bill that month. I'd paid for the lights that lit up their perfect Sunday dinners. I kept digging. Went back 5 years. And there it was. A massive, gaping hole in the family finances, $185,000. Gone. The date matched up with a tech investment boom that crashed hard. My dad had invested big and lost everything. I sat back in my chair. The pieces were clicking into place. The tension in the house. The obsession with appearances. The refusal to spend money on anything that didn't contribute to looking wealthy. They weren't just selfish. They were broke. And they were terrified. I looked at the medication box on my desk. The warning label stared back at me. Mandatory state reporting for hereditary conditions. I read it again. Then I read the fine print underneath. Failure to treat, neglect. Investigation. My phone buzzed. A text from my dad. You're being dramatic. The pharmacist is exaggerating. Come home. We have guests tonight. You need to handle the catering. I stared at that message. Handle the catering. Not, are you okay? Not, did you get your medicine? Just a demand for service. A demand for the invisible daughter to come back and make things run smoothly again. I didn't reply. I opened a new document on my computer and titled it, Audit. And I started typing. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I wasn't just a glass child. I was the inspector. And I was about to condemn the building. The next morning, I woke up with this clarity I hadn't felt in years. The anxiety that usually buzzed in my chest was gone, replaced by cold, hard resolve. I took my medication, the injection stung going in, and my hand was steady. I pulled up the family calendar. Aunt Eleanor's birthday was next week. Eleanor, my dad's sister. The one he never talked about. She'd married a forensic accountant and moved to the city, refused to play the status games that consumed the rest of the family. I hadn't seen her in years, but I knew where she lived. And I knew she'd understand. I printed everything. The financial records. My medical history. The diagnosis I'd hidden for months. The prescription rejection notice. Put it all in a neat folder. Then I got dressed. Not in the soft, blend-in clothes I usually wore to family events. I put on my sharpest suit, the one I wore for client presentations. I drove to Eleanor's brownstone. She opened the door, surprised. Avery, what are you doing here? I need to hire you, I said. Or consult with you, at least. She looked at the folder in my hand, then at my face. Something shifted in her expression. She stepped back and opened the door wide. Come in. We sat in her living room, books and art everywhere, Such a stark contrast to the empty white surfaces of my parents' house. I laid out the documents. Walked her through everything. The lost investment. The years of financial tightrope walking. The neglect. The camera kit. Eleanor listened without interrupting. She flipped through pages, her expression getting grimmer. When she reached the medication warning label, she stopped. She read it. Then looked up at me. "Do you know what this means?" she asked. "It means if I don't treat it, the state gets involved. It means more than that." She pulled up a file on her computer. "Look at the insurance policy." It was a copy of my dad's life insurance policy. Old. Taken out decades ago. The premiums were low, but the payout was massive. Millions. It was the only real asset the family had left. The only thing standing between them and total ruin. "Read the exclusion clause," Eleanor said, pointing to a paragraph in tiny print. I read it. Policy void if any direct descendant is diagnosed with a hereditary neurological condition prior to age 25. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the table. Hereditary neurological. My condition. "He knew," I whispered. Eleanor's voice was hard. "He knew if you got officially diagnosed, if it went on your medical record, the policy would be voided. That's why he didn't want me to get treatment. He wasn't saving $2,400, Eleanor said. He was saving $5 million. He was willing to let you suffer, to let you risk permanent damage, to protect his retirement fund." I felt physically sick. It wasn't neglect. It was a calculation. My brain health versus his financial security. And he'd chosen the money. "And the warning label," Eleanor continued. "The state reporting. If the pharmacy flags this as critical non-compliance, it goes into a database. A state database that insurance companies monitor. So by not paying for the meds." I started. "He triggered the exact thing he was trying to avoid," Eleanor finished. "Or he's about to. If that flag hasn't hit the system yet, it will soon." I looked at all the papers. The evidence of my father's betrayal. It was methodical, cold, devastating. "What do I do?" I asked. Eleanor looked at me. "You finish the audit. You take this to them. You show them you know. And you watch them crumble." She stood up and went to her desk, wrote out a check and handed it to me. $5,000. "For the medication," she said. "And for whatever comes next. You're not alone in this, Avery. You never were. We just let the glass get too thick." I took the check, hugged her tight. For the first time in my life, I felt solid. Seen. I also felt something else. Grief. Not for what I was about to do, but for all the years I'd spent believing I was the problem. Believing I asked for too much. Needed too much. Cost too much. "I should have come to you sooner," I said. "You're here now," Eleanor said. "That's what matters." I waited until Sunday. The weekly family dinner when everyone would be there. I walked into the house, still had my key even though my mom kept demanding I return it. The house was quiet except for the air conditioning humming. They were in the dining room, just starting lunch. "Avery," my mom exclaimed, half rising. "We were so worried. You didn't answer any texts. Are you ready to apologize?" I walked to the table. Didn't sit down. I placed the folder on the white marble right in front of my dad. "I'm not here to apologize," I said. "I'm here to update the ledger." My dad looked at the folder, then at me. "What is this?" "The cost of doing business." "Open it." He opened it. Saw the bank statements. The medical records. The copy of the insurance policy with the exclusion clause highlighted in yellow. His face went gray. "You," he choked out. "You went through my private files. I manage your cloud drive, Dad. Remember? You asked me to because you couldn't be bothered. This is," he looked at Paige, then at my mom. "This is a misunderstanding." "Is it?" I asked. "Is the $185,000 loss a misunderstanding? Is the clause that voids your $5 million policy if I get diagnosed, is that a misunderstanding?" My mom gasped, looked at my dad. "Graham, is that true?" He didn't answer. Just stared at me with this mix of fear and hatred in his eyes. "You selfish little," he hissed. "I did this for this family. For you. If that policy voids, we have nothing. We're destitute. Do you understand that? So my health was the price of admission? I asked. My brain was the collateral. It was a minor condition, he shouted, standing up. You could have managed it. A little dizziness, some tremors. You could have lived with it. But no, you had to be dramatic. You had to go to a specialist. You had to get a paper trail. I have a degenerative neurological disorder, Dad, I said, my voice rising for the first time. If I don't treat it, I lose motor function. I lose cognitive ability. I lose me. And you knew that. You knew it and you didn't care. I care about keeping a roof over our heads, he screamed. I care about Paige's future. She has potential. She's going places. You're just an architect. You draw lines on paper. She's a star. There it was. The truth. Naked and ugly. I was the worker bee. Paige was the queen. I was expendable. Well, I said, my voice dropping back to that cold, steady tone. I have some news for you. The warning label. The one you ignored. What about it? He snapped. It says that critical non-compliance with treatment for a hereditary condition triggers a mandatory state audit. He froze. Because you didn't pick up the meds, I said, the pharmacy system flagged it automatically. It went to the State Department of Health yesterday. I got the notification this morning. I pulled a letter from my pocket and tossed it on the table. They've opened an investigation into medical neglect. And because it's a hereditary condition. I looked at Paige. They've flagged all minors in the household for mandatory screening. Paige looked up from her phone, eyes wide. What does that mean? It means, I said, looking back at my dad, that the state is going to test Paige. And if she has the gene, which is highly likely, it goes on her permanent record. Immediately. My dad sank back into his chair. He looked like he'd been shot. The insurance company gets alerted to state audits, I said. It's automatic. So not only is the policy voided, you just made your golden child uninsurable. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the sound of a glass house shattering, one pane at a time. You ruined us, my mom whispered. No, I said. You ruined yourselves. I just turned on the lights. I turned and walked out. Didn't slam the door. Just closed it gently. Firmly. The click of that latch was the loudest sound in the world. I stood on their front steps for a moment. The house behind me, the one I'd grown up in, the one that had never really felt like home, looked different now. Smaller somehow. Less impressive. Just a building. Just walls and a roof. Nothing sacred. Nothing worth sacrificing myself for. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings and silence. The foreclosure notice on my parents' house came 2 weeks later. The insurance investigation was swift and brutal. The policy was voided for fraud and non-disclosure. My dad faced potential charges, but mostly he faced ruin. Paige tested positive for the gene. She was furious. Not at the disease, but at the blemish on her record. She blamed me for a week. Then she blamed our parents. When the money dried up, so did her influencer dreams. She had to get a real job. Moved out, bitter and disillusioned. My mom tried calling me once. Left a voicemail I never listened to all the way through. I caught enough of it. How could you do this to us? We gave you everything. You're so ungrateful. Before I deleted it. They gave me everything except what I actually needed. Safety. Support. The basic acknowledgement that I mattered. I stayed in my apartment. Took my medication. The tremors stopped. The dizziness faded. My mind was sharp again. Clear. I worked on my designs. Started a new project, a community center with walls of glass. But reinforced glass. Strong. Unbreakable. One evening, I sat on my balcony looking out at the city lights. I thought about my family. I didn't hate them. Hate takes too much energy. I just felt distant. Like they were characters in a book I'd finished reading. I wasn't a glass child anymore. I was the architect of my own life. And the foundation was solid. Thanks for listening, and if this story resonates with you, don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about family betrayal, finding your worth, and choosing yourself when no one else will. Sometimes the strongest thing you can build is the courage to walk away.